Well, hello. Welcome back to Toy Thursday with Johnny Tiger on February 4th, 2021. I have never been a very big fan of Spider-Man. I guess growing up, paying attention to Batman and Superman and the X-Men, I was, generally speaking, more conditioned into liking superheroes that were uh, serious and brutal and great fighters, yada yada yada. Uh, Heroes that have big guns, big armor, big cars, big muscles, in another word. So when I first got exposed to the concept, the story, the characters of Spider-Man, I really didn't think much of him. Oh, and I still don't, for the most part. This is why, in my collection, you don't see a lot of Spider-Man, because I'm not a fan. Uh, Part of that is my personal situation where I don't really relate that well to very skinny characters. And, when we talk about skinny, Spider-Man is like one of the most skinny superheroes there is. And on top of that, the way I always looked at Spider-Man, now this is strictly my opinion, and you can agree, disagree. This is what makes a free country. We can agree to disagree, or we can both agree on the same subject. That's fine. Now, for me, Spider-Man is silly, and no doubt about it. Spider-Man was designed to be silly. He's like this high school and then college kid, and even when he grew up, finally grew up to be adult, Spider-Man has always had kind of a complex. He doesn't really want to be that good of a superhero. He doesn't really want to branch out and do more with his superpower. In fact, Spider-Man was very different from the kind of superhero I grew up with. When we look at superheroes such as Batman or any members of the X-Men, Captain America, Superman, when we look at those superheroes, they work very hard. And they train, they learn, they develop new uh, ideas and goals and techniques, and they constantly try to improve themselves. Now, if you look at Spider-Man, he is this teenage, uh, young person. Even after he grew up, he still kind of has the mentality of a teenager, which is another reason why I don't like him. Um, he's this person that constantly worry. The only thing that he worries about is either his trouble with his girlfriend or making ends meet, which is really really silly when you think about a guy who has that kind of superpower having to worry about making next month's rent. It just doesn't make sense. It's not how things supposed to work in my head. I mean, okay, you don't need to use their superpower to rob a bank or anything, but when you go after the bad guy and when you turn them into the police, shouldn't you at least get something out of it? Especially when you have that level of superpower, especially considering that some of the villains Spider-Man constantly go up against were like millionaires and multi-billionaires. You would think he would know enough to pick their pocket before turning them to the police or something like that. No, I'm not. I'm not promoting picking people's pocket. I'm not promoting doing illegal activity. But again, when you have that level of superpower, I think there's a lot more Spider-Man could be doing that just can at least get him and his family out of poverty or that kind of situation. Anyway, that's just a little bit of a personal rant about Spider-Man, but don't worry, it is related to our story, our figures of the day. So, I grew up not paying attention to Spider-Man because I didn't like him. I didn't like the way he was portrayed, so I didn't pay attention to uh, other characters in Spider-Man. uh, I kind of vaguely knew a little bit about the kind of villain he ran into. There's this crazy guy dressed up as a goblin, like a Halloween dude, and there's this guy who got a scorpion tail, and there's this guy who looked like a big rhinoceros, and there's this guy that looked like a lizard. Yada yada yada. I kind of knew a little bit about them, but didn't pay much attention because none of those characters really grabbed me as all that interesting. And all this changed in 1996. I still remember 1996, walking into Toys R Us, and my younger brother Peter, who was my basically toy shopping partner at the time, and showed me this one action figure. It was a huge, hulking, muscular guy with huge claws on his hand and a lot of teeth in his alien-looking uh, mouth. And it was the sheer bulk, sheer size, and the whole threatening appearance of the guy that captivated me. And when I learned that this was a guy who was Spider-Man's arch enemy, a guy named Venom, that caught my attention finally. Finally, I guess um, for me, that was when I started to take Spider-Man seriously. Because if he had an enemy like that, then I think, okay, now we are seeing something exciting. Maybe there is something to Spider-Man after all. So after that, I started following more closely the Spider-Man storyline, but you can say that who I was really following was the character called Venom, the arch enemy of Spider-Man for the longest time. In front of the camera, you are looking at the oldest Venom action figure in my collection. This one is Venom from 2001, made by Toy Biz, a company that is no longer around. And if you look at this, for a 20-year-old action figure, this is an impressive looking guy. Venom is really big. He in his human form, he is 6'3", and then in his Venom uh, form, we'll talk a little bit more about the background of Venom in a little bit, although it's really involved, so we are not going to go too much into it. Those of you who watch the Venom movie, or those of you who read the comic book, already know a lot about him. Um, but this action figure, made in 2001 by Toy Biz, well, is the currently oldest Venom in my collection. I had other Venoms when I was a teenager. A lot of them really, really great looking. Unfortunately, uh, I sold my collection back in 1998, 99 to support some other financial need at the time. We won't go into that right now. It's just a story for another day. So this turned out to be my oldest Venom. He is mostly in black, of course, like most Venom have been depicted, and he has jagged white eyes, massive amount of muscles. Just look at those muscles on his back. I mean, that's impressive. That's some impressive bulk going on there. And the cool part, what always captivated me about Venom is that Venom is one of those examples that big characters don't have to be stupid or slow. You look at the Incredible Hulk, he's really big and really muscular, but he's kind of slow, both in physical and in the head. Uh, Now, there have been comic books that depict Incredible Hulk to be really fast, but he just kind of looks really slow. Um, And then you look at a lot of other big characters like the Thing from the Fantastic Four. Again, he's not really all that fast, and he's kind of lumbering, big, not overly bright. So traditionally, comic book has been used to showing big characters in a certain stereotype. And I always said, I even talked about this on Tactical Tuesday before, or Survival Saturday, I can't remember which one, that you don't want to get tricked into that because sometimes big guys can be amazingly fast. Venom is one such example. This is a guy who towers over almost everyone around him, massively muscled, and he is as fast, if not faster, than Spider-Man. And he is very sneaky, very stealthy, very smart, and very lethal, very deadly. Now, for those of you who are used to the way Venom is traditionally depicted, you're probably going to look at this Venom and you say, "What's wrong with him? What's going on here? This is not how Venom is always depicted." No, it's not. Sadly, I currently don't have a traditional looking Venom in my collection. Going to have to remedy that sooner or later. I have one that I have my sight on. I'm going to grab him next time he go on sale. But anyway, this is not your traditional Venom because this action figure actually depicts Venom in the middle of his transformation. As you can see, there are tendrils coming out of his legs and arms. These little materials are swirling around him. These are not spikes. These are tendrils that just whipping off of his body, and one coming out of his left hand like this. Uh, I don't know if you guys can tell, but this long tentacle-like thing here is not the original piece he came with. He keeps wanting to fall over. Uh, the original one, the original tendril on his left hand, has been lost long time ago, and I made this one to uh, be in its place. So I'm not sure if it looks convincing or not, but I hope so. Most of it is black anyway, so I can't imagine it looks too different. Um, so why is he in mid transformation? What is that about? Well, I'm going to go into a bit of a background story here, even though I know most of you who know your comic book know about Venom already, but because knowing his background is going to help you understand the rest of this today's Toy Thursday and next week's Toy Thursday, and maybe even for the week after that. So it is quite important. So, who, what is Venom, and why is it important to understand how he is created? When he was a human, well, he's still a human, but prior to becoming Venom, this person's name was Eddie Brock. Eddie Brock had a very traumatic childhood, grew up with a really mean father that uh, very abusive and dismissive, and he spent his childhood being bullied and being dismissed by his father. And then he grew up, uh, finally getting a really good job at becoming a very renowned journalist in New York, hoping that that would gain his father's approval. But even that did not improve Eddie Brock's relationship with his father. That just sounds so familiar, kind of like my own dad. But anyway, we won't go into that right now either. Uh, Maybe that's why I like Venom so much because I can relate to him on a personal level. So anyway, Eddie Brock got himself a good job. He got married, uh, and he was quickly becoming a rising star in as a reporter. On the sideline, he also worked out, and he was a very big, very good-looking guy. Blonde hair, blue eyes, 6'3", over 200 pounds. At his peak, he could lift he could bench press 700 pounds. That's before he had any superhuman power. Uh, so he was fit, he was strong, and he was doing very good as a reporter. But one day, while reporting a story, which we will not go into because that's really involved, suffice to say, he reported a story, and then that copy of the newspaper sold really well. And the next day, Spider-Man solved the crime, and it found out that Eddie Brock reported the wrong story. Uh, it, it, it turned out that the news was uh, fake news. Well, you can guess what happened. Eddie Brock lost his job, and the newspaper agency fired him to cover their own behind, and his wife divorced him, and his father disowned him. That's really extreme for just a guy just getting fired. But okay, he people around him abandoned him, and Eddie Brock became really depressed, and he blame all this on Spider-Man because, of course, Spider-Man found out the real truth behind the crime that cost him being fired and then cost him being divorced and disowned and all that stuff. So he hated Spider-Man with the passion. Eddie Brock started going to the gym, started training, started trying to be as good a fighter as he could, in hoping that one day he could take down Spider-Man. And he actually reached peak human ability, uh, like Olympic level athlete kind of thing, professional fighter. He trained really, really hard, but because Spider-Man was superhuman, Eddie Brock knew that no matter how hard he trained, he would never be able to avenge himself. So, in desperation, Eddie Brock went to a church, decided to pray to God one last time, and then he was going to kill himself. While he was at the church, he got attacked by an alien parasite uh, called Clinter. Clinter is more commonly referred to as the symbiote, because it's symbiotic, it's parasitic. What Clinter is it is a alien life form that have to uh, live inside a host. So basically, what this alien life form does is it can merge with a human, and then it can grant that human a lot of superpower. In return, the humans have to keep it safe, keep it alive, and it will feed off the human's life force sometimes. And there's also some side effects, like the symbiote, the parasite, will sometimes turn the human into psychotic killers. Um, so why did the symbiote attack Eddie Brock in the church? Well, then we have to backtrack a little bit. The symbiote already tried to uh, establish a partnership with Spider-Man. Some of you remember seeing a Spider-Man in black costume before. That is the Spider-Man using the symbiote uh, to form that outfit. But after the fight against the bad guy was over, Spider-Man decided to reject the symbiote. Okay, I don't need you anymore. Get off of me. Go elsewhere. Yada yada yada. So the symbiote, acting like a very angry, rejected ex-girlfriend, waited around until it could find someone who really, 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 really hated Spider-Man, and it decided that Eddie Brock was the right person, and indeed he was. After attacking Eddie Brock, the symbiote merged with his body, and the two of them came to a very uneasy relationship. And the result of that relationship was the character Venom. Now, a little bit about the symbiote. I know this is long-winded, but you really need to know these for the rest of this to make sense. Okay, I'm not just giving you a history lesson for no reason. Um, the symbiote, while it is in a human host, it can do a lot of crazy things. Like it can flow out of your skin and take on any shape you want it to. So if you wanted to cover you and give you a totally different look, it can. If you wanted to give you big claws and on your hand and big fangs in your mouth, it can do that too. If you wanted to just look like regular clothes, it can do that too. And in addition to that, it will heal you from any kind of injury, including being decapitated or chopped in half or blown up. The symbiote will heal you and it will cure disease inside of you like cancer, yada yada yada. Um, so for the most part, when Eddie Brock is walking around, he is still Eddie Brock. But when he's ready to do battle, the symbiote flow out of his skin, crawl up his body, enveloping him, transforming him into this big hulking, uh, big clawed, toothy monster thing you see here. This is called Venom. But as you see, this is why I said this is half transformation. This is in the process because if you look at his feet, I hope you can see his feet. Um, his right foot is already covered up by the symbiote. It looks like a foot inside a boot. His left foot is still bare human foot. So the symbiote has not covered that part yet. And the same with the right hand. The right hand is this big, huge claws, dangerous looking, and the left hand is still more human looking, with this tendril of symbiote material that's ready to cover it up. Now, if you get really close and look inside this action figure's mouth, this is where it's really interesting. Because a casual passerby would think that the symbiote physically transforms Eddie Brock's whole body into this monster, but no. What it actually does is it covers him up like a sleeve, like a costume, and then the costume is the only part that look like this. Because if you get really close, I don't think you can see on camera, but if you get really close and look inside this huge open mouth of the Venom, you can see Eddie Brock's own human face inside the head. So this looks like a real, like a whole creature, but it's only on the outside. The symbiote is only on the outside. It's still a human on the inside. Part of the reason this is he is that big is because the symbiote has the ability to change uh, to different size. It can grow quite large. And Eddie Brock himself, being a champion weightlifter and well-trained fighter and all that stuff, was really big to begin with. That's why Venom is such a big dude. Now, the interesting thing about Venom, I mean, there's a lot of interesting thing about Venom, but in the beginning, Venom was very one-tracked. He was all about hating Spider-Man, wanting to kill Spider-Man, yada yada yada. But gradually, because Eddie Brock was not really that bad of a person, but Eddie Brock started to branch out and become a kind of an anti-hero. He would fight more bad guys than good guys, and then gradually he became a lethal protector of homeless people. He actually defended homeless people against gangsters and corrupt policemen, stuff like that. So he became kind of a protector of the weak and the underdog, and he's never shy about using lethal force. Uh, he has a lot of crazy ability because of the Venom symbiote. Uh, in addition to being able to give him big fangs and claws and superhuman healing powers and super speed, super strength, all that. By the way, Spider-Man is superhuman, but Spider-Man can only lift 10 tons. Well, I say only, but that's a lot. Venom, on the other hand, can lift 25 tons. So he's like twice and more stronger than Spider-Man physically. Um, in addition to all that, he can also use the symbiote to attack people. The symbiote can flow into his enemy's nostrils and throat and choking them to death that way. The symbiote can also form long tendrils like the one on his left hand here, one I made for replacement. Uh, this he can actually use that to strangle his enemy. Now, the symbiote does have its weakness. It's extremely scared of fire and extremely scared of uh, loud sound type attack, like ultrasonic uh, attack or sonic boom or that kind of loud noise. So it has its limitation. But within its limitation, it makes Eddie Brock one of the deadliest creatures in the Marvel universe, at least in his league. We're not counting people like Thanos or uh, Thor or those kind of superhuman. But within his league, Venom is always one of the deadliest. Unfortunately, because of the power the symbiote gave him, uh, Eddie Brock became a hunted target, not just by people who hated him, but by people who wanted to copy his symbiote. One time, he was captured by a secret government organization called the Life Foundation, and the Life Foundation forced the symbiote off of Eddie's body, and for, it's kind of gross, but it's let's say they've induced the symbiote to give birth to five babies, and they force these baby symbiote to bind with five human hosts, and these human hosts gradually became other monsters, just like Venom, and they were supposedly to do the government's bidding. They were like the government's secret weapon. But then they went rogue and started killing each other, and the story got really complicated. But I have one of uh, Venom's quote unquote babies here to show you guys. This here, his name is Phage. As you guys can see, he is very much like Venom, but a lot smaller. Phage is he's still big for a human, but he's not hulking monster like Venom. Um, Phage is one of the symbiote baby that bounded with a human host. He's very lanky, and his coloration is a little bit different. He is primarily orange and yellow. And Phage, in addition to having the original Venom powers, although he and his siblings, because they were just offsprings of the original symbiote, they don't have as good a control. They don't have as much fighting experience. So every time they try to go after their dad, the original Venom, they get their butts handed to them. It's actually quite funny. It's like a big unhappy family. The original Venom want to kill them because he didn't want to have them in the first place. He was forced into producing them, and these babies, they feel rejected by the original Venom, so they always want to kill him. So Phage is one of the babies, and he has a special power, like his specialty that he does, which is forming bladed weapons with his symbiote. Look at his right hand, how it's transformed into this big barbed sword thing look really solid, but it's crazy to think that this is actually formed by this symbiote alien organism that look a lot like snot. Um, his left hand has a big sharp claws on it, and he has blades on his forearm here, here, blades on his leg, side of his leg, side of that leg too, and blades coming, this hook blade thing coming out of his back. And of course, if you look at his mouth, wide open mouth, a lot of teeth, just like Venom. Right? So this is one of the Venom babies, one of the symbiote babies, Phage. I originally had another one back in 1998, but I sold that one unfortunately, and I have not been able to find replacement and the rest of the Venom babies. So right now, out of the five, the only one I have is Phage. But he is really cool, and he is one of the action figures given to me by my beautiful girlfriend for my birthday in 2020. So really cool, really good. I really appreciate this one. Add to my Venom collection. However, even though I don't have the rest of the original five Venom baby, I do have another bastard child of the Venom. This guy is most likely the worst, the most deadly, the craziest serial killer in the entire Marvel comic book. Before I bring him out, let me tell you about Cletus Cassidy. Cletus Cassidy was a serial killer serving 11 life sentences in a penitentiary when authorities caught up with Eddie Brock, and that was at a time when Eddie Brock actually parted way with his Venom symbiote, so he was just a normal human. So when police caught him, they threw him in jail for all the stuff he did as Venom, and he was in the same jail cell with this serial killer, uh, Cletus Cassidy. Finally, the Venom symbiote came and found Eddie Brock. They're supposed to be partners, so they might have little arguments sometimes and part company, but the symbiote always come back. The symbiote come back found Eddie Brock in jail and bound merged with his body again so he could transform into Venom, break himself out of jail. But this was a time when the symbiote was ready to give birth. It's an alien thing. I don't know. I don't know why the symbiote just go around and drop babies randomly. Okay, I don't know how that works. I just know it's kind of disgusting and disturbing. So anyway, while the symbiote was merging with Eddie Brock inside the jail, the symbiote dropped a baby symbiote. So after Venom left the jail cell, broke himself out of jail, this little baby symbiote crawled around in the cell and uh, merged with the nearest human host it could find, which was this crazy serial killer called Cletus Cassidy. Cletus, Cletus Cassidy, unlike most of the other symbiote hosts, you see, Eddie Brock has a very strong moral code. So he's constantly arguing with his symbiote and limiting who can be killed, who cannot be killed, who they should kill, who they shouldn't kill, and how much force they should make, and really annoy the heck out of the symbiote. That's why they fight so much. And the other five children of the Venom, well, they were human hosts being used by the government to bind with these alien symbiotes. They weren't really happy about the arrangement. Cletus Cassidy, though, completely different. Cletus Cassidy is a serial killer who loves killing people. So now, binding with this alien symbiote, he embraced the symbiote and became a creature called Scourge. And here he is. Look at how disgusting the symbiote just all over his skin. He's not smooth looking like Venom and Phage. He is like all kind of diseased looking, like there's kind of a. It's almost like he got athlete foot, but all over his body. Look at that, and all these tendrils of symbiote coming out of his back and his shoulder. He is still relatively skinny looking. He's not very big, although one of his powers he can grow a lot bigger. He has huge claws on his hand, and just overall, uh, a really disturbing looking creature. And he's red and black, by the way. What makes um, what makes Scourge, aka Cletus, so much stronger than even the original Venom? It's his embracing the symbiote and his insanity as a serial killer. Let me give you one example of how crazy the strength difference is. Let me bring the original Venom back into the frame. This is the original Venom, or you know, transformation. This is Scourge. So you can tell Scourge, at least when he's not busy growing really big, in his normal form, he's a lot smaller than Venom. As I mentioned earlier, Venom, big hulking Venom, can lift 25 tons. Scourge, skinny little Scourge, who looks so much smaller than Venom, can lift upwards of 80 tons. That's 80. That's like 8 times Spider-Man and more than 3 times Venom. That's how strong he is. That how strong this little guy is. Crazy, crazy. He's killed so many people in the comic book. It's just a one crazy bad guy. Um, in addition to having all the original Venom power, like superhuman speed, superhuman strength, and superhuman healing ability, can heal from any kind of injury, Scourge also has found crazy new ways of using his power, such as his symbiote can penetrate a human's head, and he can pass his own rage and insanity into another person and infect that other person, turning them into a psycho killer. So he can create an army of crazy killers for himself. Also, he has found ways to use his symbiote to infect techno machines and computers and stuff like that. He defeated Iron Man by doing that. His symbiote is actually able to flow into machines and computers and take them over, make them do his bidding. Scourge has also developed the ability to pass his symbiote through computer signal to allow himself to uh, move from place to place just by becoming a parasite on an email or a computer program. So turning himself into a computer virus, in other words. So he's got some crazy new power that Venom never dreamed of having. Really crazy guy. Uh, Scourge here also is one of the gifts from my girlfriend for my birthday in 2020. I got so many great figures uh, that's going to keep us going for another few months yet that we'll still be talking about birthday gifts. I got one last Venom child to show you guys here. This one is also one of the gifts for my birthday from my girlfriend. This little guy, his name is Miles Morales, aka Kid Arachnid. Um, he is a Spider-Man from a different universe. And I don't really know much about him because I don't really care for him. But long story short, he got drafted by Spider-Man to help fight off a bunch of uh, Venom symbiote possessed people, and then because Miles Morales is not very experienced, he ended up getting uh, taken over by one of those symbiotes he was supposed to fight, and transformed into a little kid Venom, so to speak. You can see he's very small. Let me bring uh, Scourge back into the frame so you can see. Scourge is already pretty small, and standing next to him, this Miles Morales is even smaller. Makes sense because he's only a teenager. Very generic, muscular, red and black body like Venom. Well, Venom is usually pure black. Uh, Now this guy's got kind of a red thing going on. Typical Venom style head, big open jaw, a lot of teeth, and then Venom style claws, big claws on the hand, on the feet. But other than that, kind of boring looking action figure, skinny, small, you know. But a worthy addition to my Venom symbiote family because it's another character that has the Venom symbiote. Um, One of the cool things about this little guy is he is one of the very few Venom symbiote hosts that can fire projectile. He can fire like electric shocks, and he can use his symbiote as a projectile like bullets, and he can use it to stun and knock people out. So that's kind of a cool thing because he's so small. So it neat that they gave him kind of a long range advantage over his more bulky and hulking relatives. And that's very important because these Venom relatives, they don't play nice. Every symbiote is trying to kill other symbiote. There is a reason for that. They don't just do it for fun. Because as shown in the story by Scourge, Scourge can actually assimilate, absorb other symbiotes. So every time Scourge kills another symbiote user and takes their symbiote into his own body, it actually make him stronger. So uh, that's kind of why this family is so nasty to each other. Uh, we have, well, I have anyway. I have quite a few more really crazy looking members of this family. I'll show you guys next week. But for now, I think this is long enough and you kind of get a crash course on the history of Venom and his crazy, crazy family members. Thank you for checking out today's Toy Thursday. We'll be back again tomorrow for Fitness Friday. For now, have a good night.